I'm Chance Dorland, and this is the Spurs Insider, our weekly NBA podcast from ExpressNews.com, joined once again by our main host, San Antonio Express News Spurs beat reporter Jabari Young. We're going with the big guns today, Jabari. There is some breaking news. It happened this afternoon. Fill me in. What happened?
Well, I mean, the end of an era is over, and Manu Ginobili and he decided to retire after 16 years from the San Antonio Spurs, and what a wonderful career it was. We all thought that maybe he would give it one more year. I thought that he would give it one more year because he played so well last year. I mean, it was just a great, another fabulous year for him. I'm not going to say great, but in Manu terms, in a 40-year-old man terms, I mean, it was a pretty successful season. So, when you have all of that, you swear that, hey, he's going to come back another year. He's going to give it another shot. But I believe that over the last few weeks, him hanging out in the Pacific Northwest with his family, him being able to experience, what that's all about, he decided to just, call it quits. And I think, you can't argue with that. Nobody can disagree with that. You just got to salute. You just got to remember all the great times that he gave the San Antonio Spurs and the fans. And you just got to look forward to the next generation.
That all being said, is this a surprise to you? You just mentioned that you thought he might have stuck around, but is this a big surprise? Did you think this might have been likely? Where are you thinking about all this?
You know what? It's somewhat surprising in a little bit because Manu has never took it this deep into the season, or to the off season. He's always kind of made up his mind really early, and maybe that should have been a red flag. Listen, he's taken longer than normal. Maybe he's really sitting back and thinking twice or thinking three times about this thing. Maybe he's not as sure about coming back as he was in the previous years. And I just think that he was putting up Twitter pictures of, him being in the Pacific Northwest and hanging with his family. And he's always said that he would go and check with his family first and see how they feel about him returning, and also check, and look at his body. I don't think his body was the issue. I think this time his family actually said, Dad, his sons actually said, Dad, we want you home. We want you with us. Obviously, and when you hear that as a father, when you gave 16 years to a profession and, you've made millions of dollars, you're not starving. You're not going to, ever be wanting for money for the rest of your life. When you have your kids come to you and say that maybe, Dad, we want you to take us to school every morning. We don't want just Mom. We want both of y'all. I think that has an impact. And I think this time it had an impact on Manu Ginobili's decision. And that's exactly why after 16 years, he's retired.
Why might this be a good thing, Jabari?
Well, you know what? It'll be a good thing because the young guns will have an opportunity to get those minutes. Remember, for Manu Ginobili, obviously over time, the minutes may have not been, as high as it was when he was younger. But, Greg Popovich would still go to Manu Ginobili in the clutch. When he needed a play, he knew the one guy that he can call on and depend on was Manu Ginobili. I mean, that's just that goes without saying. I mean, listen, if you look at the course of his career, I mean, the man has never averaged under 18 minutes in his career. Last year, he averaged 19 minutes a season. That's the highest that he's averaged since they won the championship in 2014-15, and partially because Kawhi Leonard wasn't there. So Greg Popovich needed somebody that he can depend on in those times of clutch situations. So, you play 20 minutes a game and you still average 8.9 points and you still was able to make some key plays and key defensive plays. I mean, 20 minutes a game for a 40-year-old. I mean, come on, that's unheard of. You know what I mean? That's at 41 years old, you got to figure that Greg Popovich is still going to rely on him. But I just feel like, listen, he's been playing this game in the NBA since he was 25. You have to go back way earlier, his teens, before he got to the NBA. 2 All-Star appearances, won 4 championships. I mean, what more can you ask of the man? I mean, he's given you everything that you need. So in that way, I'm not surprised that he, did retire. And I'm not necessarily mad that he did because he's giving you all he can. And again, the young guns get a chance to shine now. The young players, Lonnie Walker, maybe not get as much time, but Derek White, the young guys, they get a chance to show what they have. Davis Bertans, Marco Bellinelli's back in the fold. So he's going to get a majority of Manu's minutes, I believe, coming off the bench. So the young guys is going to be able to show what they have more because for the first time since 2002, you don't have a guy named Manu Ginobili that's standing in the way that is going to give you and get all the minutes off that bench and you don't have that for the first time. So now the young guys got to show what they can do, and there's no excuses this time. You got to show up.
I've been seeing this all over the place. You've mentioned it on a previous podcast episode here on the Spurs Insider. It's all over expressnews.com right now, talking about, number one fan favorite Spur. This is an end of an era. It's something that you've already said to start off today's episode. Why else is this a bad thing?
Well, it's a bad thing because you're losing what Greg Popovich referred to as that corporate knowledge. You don't have it anymore. That's gone. When the Spurs needed to play, Manu Ginobili was usually involved, whether it was an assist, a rebound, a steal, a block, a 3-point shot, a 2-point shot. Manu Ginobili was somehow involved when the Spurs needed a big play. So they're going to miss that. They're going to down the stretch when they need something done. For all the athleticism and the youth that those young guys have, they lack something. And you know what that is, Chance? That's inexperience. They don't have, they lack the experience, I should say. They're inexperienced. They don't have those times where they are used to it. They don't have those times where they're, what they know what a clutch play means. They don't have those times where you look at the clock, there's 5 minutes to go, you're up 6, you got to make the plays that's necessary to win the basketball game. They don't got that. Manu Ginobili had it. You know why? Because he put the work in. So those young guys don't have that. So that's where the bad comes in at, because there are going to be times this upcoming season when the Spurs need to play, it's going to result in a turnover instead of a big play. You know why? Because that's where inexperience comes in at. That's where that Manu Ginobili experience comes in. They don't know what to do in clutch situations. Hell, we've seen it a couple of times last season. So they don't know what it is yet. They haven't developed it. They haven't figured that out yet. Now they will figure it out. As time goes on, they will get that. But at the same time, the Spurs need that now because they're trying to compete for a championship right now. So, that takes away a lot when you're talking about it from a San Antonio Spurs perspective. When you don't have a Manu Ginobili there, it's going to be weird, man. It's going to be weird seeing the first player off that bench.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
It's going to see the first player off that bench be somebody other than number 20. It really will be. And I know it's going to be a sad occasion. But I tell people like this. You can look at it as a sad moment, but I choose to look at it as a happy moment. The man gave you 16 years. He's given you some of the most memorable moments in Spurs franchise history. You got to be thankful that you were able to witness it. For those people, only people that should feel sad is for those people who's never been to a basketball game and seen Manus really play. For the young players, for the young children who's going to, when they're getting older, their kid's going to say, yeah, he's good. But you need to see Manu Ginobili in his prime. And they're going to say, who's Manu Ginobili? And then their parents should say, first of all, son, sit down, look at these highlights. Here's what Manu Ginobili, here's what he did. Those are the people who should be sad. If you witness Manu Ginobili, if you've seen him in person, if you've seen him even after a game, signing an autograph, before a game, signing an autograph, watched him for 16 years, play for the San Antonio Spurs, whether you've been to a game or saw it live on TV, you should be happy because you got to go for the ride. The people who should be sad is for those people who didn't go for the ride. Because believe me, Manu Ginobili, you might not ever see him again.
So, as someone who was there for a lot of the ride, what were some of the most memorable or some of the things you liked the most about covering Manu?
You know what, man? The one thing I liked about Manu Ginobili is that he cared. He cared about the fans. There's a guy who I know, and this guy, his name is David Garcia. And I got him a Spurs ticket, and all he wanted to do was meet Manu Ginobili. So he came to a home game, and after a game, I was able to ask Manu Ginobili if he can go out. This guy has never met Manu Ginobili. He's been one of the biggest Manu Ginobili fans here in San Antonio, and he was never able to go out. He's never met Manu Ginobili before. Never shook his hand. So, Manu was gracious enough after a game. It was a little bit longer after a game, but to come out and sign his autograph. And there's things like that, you look back and you say, my God, that's a good damn man. Not a basketball player, but he's a good man. He recognized what he was. He recognized who he was. He recognized what he represented. And he recognized that there are a whole bunch of people out there that are dying to meet him. And he took everything and he didn't take it for granted. I was in New York one time and I saw so many Argentinians come and try to get his attention. And he sat there and signed autographs about 20, 25 minutes, after his pregame workout. and sat and signed autographs and took pictures. I mean, he just knew what it was about. After games before, when Argentinians were in San Antonio, Manu, he would skip the media session, or he would do the media session, and then after that, go out and sit on a chair with a table in front of him and wait for all of those Argentinians that came to the game, and it must have been about 100, and sat there and signed their autographs and took pictures with him. The dude just knew what it was about. You know, I had a friend of mine come down from Philadelphia a long time ago, back in 2013, 14. And she was sitting outside and she was waiting. And then she came and she had no idea. But Manu Ginobili looked at her and said, "Hey, are you waiting for me?" And she didn't know who Manu Ginobili was. And she said, "Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah." And he just took pictures with her. You know what I mean? Another friend of mine, he took pictures with Manu Ginobili. So it's just that, man, he knew what it was about. You know, he understood that it was just bigger than basketball. People, they fiend for him. People love Manu Ginobili, and he loved them right back. And believe me, that's rarely seen in today's NBA. I mean, a lot of people don't know what it is. A lot of people don't know what it's about. They think it's about playing basketball, making millions of dollars, going and buying Bentleys and Ferraris and driving in these fancy cars. And, you know, you may sign 1 or 2 autographs, but then after that, oh, no, I'm done. You know what I mean? Or some people may ignore it. I've never seen him do that before. So for him, it was bigger than basketball. And I think I will always have that respect. You respect his competitiveness on the court. You respect the fact that he was fearless on the court. You respect the fact that he sacrificed his body. I mean, let's keep it real. And I'm not saying anything that's not documented. The man lost a testicle playing for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, not many NBA players lose testicles. That needs to be brought up a lot more than it does.
Exactly. The man lost a testicle. He lost a testicle playing for the San Antonio Spurs, and guess what? In a couple of weeks, he was right back on the court. Most dudes might have retired. Hey, I lose a testicle, I'm done. He didn't do that. He came right back on the court, and he competed. And in a few weeks, obviously. He couldn't come right back on the court right away. But, I mean, that just shows you what type of competitor he was, man. And off the court, behind the scenes, he was even a better man. And I would always respect that about Manu Ginobili.
So where does the franchise go from here, Jabari?
Well, you know, it's going to be tough. I mean, you know, Manu Ginobili just doesn't grow off trees. I mean, the man is a hard guy to replace. So it's going to be tough to replace him. It's going to be tough to you know, get that production from him. It's going to be tough to get that corporate knowledge from him. So the only thing that the team can do from here on out is just try their best to, instill into the young guys, instill into the veterans as what Manu Ginobili represented. And Greg Popovich, I remember one time himself, I remember Manu was diving on the floor for a ball. And I remember after the game, somebody asked Greg Popovich about it. And he says, you stood up. Were you concerned about him when he fell on the floor, or were you just, happy? He says, I was applauding him. You try to tell guys, you got to leave it out there on the floor. You try to tell guys that they got to go for it. They got to give it all they have. Everybody's not the same, though. Everybody's not Manu Ginobili. And the Spurs are going to have a hard time replacing that. And they may not ever replace it. And matter of fact, I think that they shouldn't even try to replace it. If he's around, let him come in, watch from the gym, give young guys advice. But it's going to be hard to replace Manu Ginobili. They can't replace Manu Ginobili. It's going to be difficult. So where they go from here is that any young person, any young guy, any vet that may have not played 16 years like Manu Ginobili played, what you do is you just try to tell them those. And if they're a vet, you've seen Manu Ginobili, you know what he's all about. So if you come with the San Antonio Spurs, you just know as a vet, you got to bring it the way Manu Ginobili brought it. And if you can't bring it the way he brought it, then sit down. And I'm not saying full go. You're not going to bring it the way he brought it every game, but at least try halfway. Give it half of the shot. And if you can't do that, then believe me, I don't even have to tell you to sit down. Greg Popovich is going to tell you to sit down. And then a young guy, look at the film and just realize that you're dealing with somebody special. You know what I mean? So like I said, all you can do is go up from there.
So you've made a good case, hard to replace Manu Ginobili, but the Spurs have signed a replacement. Tell me about that, if that was a good move.
I don't think it's a replacement. I think I would say he's another body, another veteran body who, is going to come in, and Quincy Poindexter, came in and he's going to sign to a partially guaranteed deal, partially guaranteed 1-year deal with the Spurs. But here's a guy who's a 3-and-D guy. He at one point before he went down to injury, this dude, playing for the New Orleans Pelicans back in 2014-15 season. I mean, he was about a 40% 3-point shooter. So I think that, he feels like they can stretch the floor with him. That was his best season, as a matter of fact, in the NBA. But it's a partially guaranteed deal. So if it doesn't work out, the Spurs can always waive him and look for somebody else on the wire. But I think this is an opportunity for a vet guy to come and prove himself, prove that he's healthy, and prove that he can contribute when called upon. Now, obviously, like I said before, it's going to be hard for him to make the roster after, his guaranteed date. But all you can do is just, if you're Quincy Poindexter, is take advantage of the opportunity. You're playing for a team that believes they're going to compete for a championship, and you just got to take advantage of it. And don't try too hard. And don't try too hard. Just do what you do. Be a 3-and-D guy. When you got a wide open three, hit the three. Get a chance to attack the basket. Do what you do. And I think if he stays within himself and does what he does, he'll be a good fit, and he might last the whole season.
Final thoughts, Jabari, before we say goodbye. Obviously, a special episode this week with what's happened with Manu, the end of an era. You get the last remarks, man.
Well, I saw somebody who was in ownership of the Spurs, and I said hello to them. And, we spoke a little bit when I was at the AT&T Center recording the Manu Ginobili reaction video. And, we were talking, and she was, it was just like, hey, I'm glad the drama's over. and I think a lot of people are glad about that. This has truly been a season that you look back on it and you say, this is going to be the season that this is where it all started. If the Spurs win a championship from here on out, you got to look back at 2018 offseason as this is where it started. This is where the big three ended. There's no more big three. There's no more corporate knowledge. Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan are officially out of the building. Tim Duncan's probably the last dude who still comes around, but they are officially gone. They will not be lacing it up. They will not be putting on a Spurs jersey ever again. And I think that you got to move on from that. Now, with that said, with the fans, I caution to not compare every player, every young player to those guys. Those guys were special. Those guys were one of a kind. Those guys represented, and they represented and they presented team basketball. And every player is not going to get that right away. Every young player is not going to comprehend that right away. And you got to give them time. Don't say, oh, this guy, Manu Ginobili would have never done that. Well, guess what? This dude ain't Manu Ginobili. Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan are one of a kind. They are. Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili being the one of a kind that I mentioned the most. Tony Parker, I mean, he's a great player. He's one of a kind too. But Manu and Tim, they're not going to ever be matched again. And I think that I caution Spurs fans to appreciate that era, remember that era, look back on that era, smile on that era, but don't compare that era to the new era that's coming up. Because the new era that's coming up, they have their own history. They have their own records. They have their own experience to write, and go along for this new journey that's approaching. Because you got some nice talent that's in this new journey. Appreciate it, applaud them, pick them up when they might be, feeling down, or they might be in a little shooting slump. You know what I mean? Do what you can do to make sure that they stay in San Antonio, and that the first time that they become a free agent, they're not just going to go. They're not going to leave. You know what I mean? Represent them, appreciate them, cheer for them the same way you did the big three. And if you do that, and those young guys continue to develop, and they develop, then you'll have a new history in Spurs basketball that can very well result in championships in the future. But right now, the big three is over. Appreciate the new era that's on the horizon.